Today's video is sponsored by Skillshare. Stay tuned to hear more about all that Skillshare has to offer. Hey there everyone, my name is Rachel. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are new to the channel, I'm a coloring enthusiast, and here we just kind of document our coloring journey. We try new stuff. We overall just kind of like to have some fun with it. So if you like what you see and want to join me, please consider subscribing. All right, in today's video, we are going to slow it down. Now, typically, I try to cram about 8 hours worth of coloring into a 10-minute video. So it's really hard to spend a lot of time on just one thing. So today, we're going to do just that. We're going to spend a lot of time on just the door on this bookstore page from the original Romantic Country coloring book. This door is beautiful. It's absolutely the focal point on this page. It's got this great stained glass transom right above it, all these awesome books. It's got a duck and a cat butt. I am down for all of this. So I'm going to be exclusively using my Faber-Castells today, just for simplicity's sake. And to start, I pulled a bunch of greens that I may want to use to create this lovely, vibrant front door to the bookstore. And before we get started, just a disclaimer, I'm going to be taking you through how I like to color. This is not the only way to color. It's not the right way to color. It's just the way that I like to color. So maybe take some inspiration from it, maybe take some of the techniques that I use or the thought process or the methodology and incorporate it into your own style. All right, to kick us off, I like to start with my lightest colors. And I'm going to be placing this one down into some of these open areas that the artist left for us. So these are the areas where there aren't these kind of vertical lines that you see in other spots on the door. And I usually like to place the lightest color down in a pretty big area, even bigger than I intend for it to end up being. And that is because I know that as I add more colors, as I layer, I'm going to go right over top of these edges. And eventually my lightest color is just going to sort of shrink down to the end result size that I intended all along. Plus, you can always make your spots darker later if you want, but it's really difficult to make a dark area light again once it's down. Now, a moment ago, I switched to the next lightest color that I pulled. And with this, I'm going to be surrounding and overlapping into the light green that I laid down previously. So if you picture a Venn diagram, there's always that area in between the two circles where they meet, where they overlap and create something new. That is what we're doing here. That overlap is where the magic happens. It is where that soft transitional blend happens. And this color that I'm putting down now, this is what I call my base layer. It's going to be the foundational layer that I lay down over most of the rest of the door. And then I'll be laying a whole bunch of colors right over top of this one. But this one is going to be that base layer. Also, the areas that I laid down previously, that's kind of where I'm picturing like the light would be hitting. So if you can imagine the light source on your page, a good spot to place down those lightest colors are the areas where that light source would sort of be hitting. And on top of that, I also am kind of picturing this door to be a bit time-worn. You know, it's an old bookstore, people coming and going over the years. I'm picturing that green paint or maybe green stain that was on this door to have worn off in a bunch of places over time. And that is the end result that we're going to be looking for and that we are going to be layering and building upon to get to. Now let's move further into the medium tones. And this one is a bit vibrant. So you'll notice that I'm using very light pressure to begin with just to see how it's going to lay down before I jump in with both feet. It's always a good idea with a color where you're not entirely kind of sure how it's going to work out, just to use light pressure to start with until you know what to expect. And speaking of vibrancy, I knew this color was going to be on the brighter side, and I knew that I would want to tone it down a bit. And so I actually toned it down a bit even before adding this color. That's why I put down the base layer over almost entirely, the rest of the door prior to this. because I knew that everything that I placed on top of it will interact with it. It'll create that new thing where those two colors, meet. And in this case, I knew that the earth green would tone down the vibrancy of this dark phthalo green before I even put it down, just enough to where I wanted it. If I had laid this color down on its own, it would have really retained its vibrancy, and I don't think that it would have worked as well as I would have liked. And that's fine if that's what you're looking for, but your choices should always be kind of intentional or experimental. Also, I'm picturing this green as the original color of the door. The lighter areas are where it's sort of worn off, and the darker areas that I'm going to be adding later are the areas where it's gotten a bit dingy. So I'm placing this color down in areas on the door where I think that the wear patterns wouldn't be. All right, juniper green. We are now entering the color arena where the slight hints of dinge start to come in. So we're going to start working it into the corners and all those areas where dust and dirt will collect and darken these areas of our door. Side note too, I am using very light pressure with each one of these layers. Now the key to being able to add in multiple layers of color is light pressure. If you press too hard, you're going to be lucky to get 2 or 3 layers out of it. There's only so much that the paper itself can actually hold. But with light pressure, you'll have the control to continue to add until you're happy with the final product. I love this coloring book. I recently actually rebought it. I bought this book several years ago, probably at least maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But my daughter actually colored a lot of the pages in this book when she was little. And there's a bunch of pages too that I wanted to color and color for you guys. So I just went ahead and rebought the book. I figured, why not? Now we're going to up the dinge factor with some warm, dark gray. Black would be too high contrast for this, at least in my opinion. So you want to pull that back a little bit, and this gray will do nicely to just sort of dull the vibrancy of some of these greens and add that slightly kind of dusty, dingy layer in certain areas. And once that's down and you've sort of gone through those layers, those steps, you can actually take a step back and go back in and tweak with all of the colors that you just used in whatever order you want. You might find that you need to kind of refine the shape of like a color in a certain section, or maybe even add a little bit more dinge in a certain corner. This is the perfect time to assess and adjust. Now you'll notice I left the panel molding of the door blank for now, and I did that on purpose. Between the door itself being kind of time-worn and the lighting on the panels needing to be a little bit different, I wanted to tackle each one of those elements one at a time so that I could really focus on each one and give it the detail that I wanted to. But the flat part of our door is okay for now, so let's jump in to that recessed panel detail. And the way that I like to do that is, again, to think of my light source. I like to have 2 sides of the recess be where the light is hitting, and then 2 sides inversely being where the light is not hitting. So 2 sides light and 2 sides dark, essentially. So you're just going to have to decide which sides those are and jump in. And whatever 2 you choose, just keep in mind they should be next to each other, not opposite each other. And as I went, I got into this rhythm of using my Derwent electric eraser on the 2 dark sides just to pull up just a little bit of color, but keep the dinge along the edges and in the corners. I think this worked out really well. And the electric eraser is such that you can kind of use like the edge of it to get like really nice, precise line. Now for the final layer of dust and dinge, we're going to bring it all home with a dark brown. And this is perfectly placed along kind of the bottom edge of the door where muddy boots and whatnot would be kind of holding the door open or kicking open the door. And again, along the top edge and the sides where the door kind of scrapes against the door frame. And your brown will also make for an excellent shader along 2 sides of the open sign to give it a 3-dimensional quality. All our color is down now. It is time to blend. And I'm going to be just doing a nice soft blend with a simple dry cotton swab. This inexpensive little tool is a great coloring blender. It'll push and pull and blend your colors with a beautiful soft finish. And as you blend, you can pull out your colored pencils and continue to refine. And it's as simple as that, folks. All in all, this door took me about an hour or so to color, and that might seem a ridiculous amount of time to spend on just one element of a page, but when you want to put a lot of layers in and a lot of detail, taking your time is the way to do it. Also, this is the focal point of our page. All eyes are going to land here first, so you really want it to feel special. I hope you enjoyed seeing this kind of slowed down version of my coloring and maybe even learned something along the way. And don't worry, we're going to be finishing this page next week, so you will be able to see the finished work then. Thanks again to the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Now, if you liked learning from me today, you're going to love learning from all the talented creators on Skillshare's platform. Skillshare is an online learning community for creators with thousands of classes in design, art, business, so much more. If you want to improve your knowledge on any topic, Skillshare has a class for you. Like this class, Color Theory 101 with Ariel Rassel. I highly recommend learning about color theory. You'll find it so helpful when choosing and implementing color combinations and overall palettes in your coloring. Now, premium membership gives you unlimited access to classes, communities, and workshops that are just right for you and your learning goals. So join the millions of students already learning on Skillshare today with a special offer just for PencilStash viewers. The first 1,000 viewers to click the link below in the description will get a free trial of premium Skillshare membership. Now, after your free trial, Skillshare is super affordable, with an annual subscription being less than $10 per month. And with all the growth potential that these classes have to offer, that is a fantastic investment in yourself and your personal development. Act now for this special offer and start learning with Skillshare today. And that is it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. If you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up button. It helps me out tremendously. Consider subscribing and checking out the back catalog. And if you're a Disney fan, check out my brand new Etsy shop, link down in the description. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye!